us.
Good morning. A very warm welcome to each one of you. Thank you for joining. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you on once again on this Global Udan webinar series, the 25th edition, which we started in April 2025 under the Development of International Trade Services, WTO Directorate. So this was an initiative this year which we thought, and I think looking to the future, we've got tremendous from the participants. We've got very week. In fact, very happy to share that based on this response, we had the Global Week celebration from 29th September to 7th October, where more than 5,000 participants joined virtually in entire world, not just India. So it was truly a success for us to organize this Global Week. So once again, I welcome all of you for this important discussions which we'll have on a topic says from Australia to India, understanding legal and tax implications in cross-border service delivery. So this is the topic, and I am very happy and pleased to welcome Ms. Vidhi Ashik Modi, who's an eminent and expert international taxation speaker and cross-border structuring, who will share her deep knowledge and practical experience with us. So thank you, Vidhi, for joining this Global Run series, the 25th edition. And I also would like to thank C. Shailesh Vadhavania, who will be moderating today's session and guiding the discussions towards key learnings and takeaways. So thank you, Shailesh and Vidhi, for sparing your valuable time and making yourself available for this Global Udan webinar series. And all the participants, always been an encouragement. The participants join in big numbers. The questions which are raised are most apt and practical for each one's understanding. I think, and this is what an opportunity for us to know the cross borders opportunities, the taxations opportunities, the outsourcing accounting opportunities which are now available, and especially the Australia market. A lot of work is coming to India in terms of outsourcing. And based on this response, we thought that why not have our own ICAI portal? And we were just to share with all of you that we started a portal which is called apo.icai.org. So this is APO stands for the Accounting Process Outsourcing, and this is a portal which gives an opportunity to the Indian firms to join this portal to register themselves, get approvals from ICI for the credentials which they possess for opportunities, and asking the foreign entities to register at this portal. So in line with creating a platform for both Indian entity as well as foreign entity who could create opportunities among themselves. So foreign entity can outsource work to the Indian entity. So I would certainly request participants to have a look to this portal, which is apo.ici.org. So and register if not done till today. So thank you all of you once again for joining. And topic is very timely and relevant, I must say. And with the, of course, experience for so many years, I'm sure Shailesh will be taking up through her introduction. But definitely with a couple of discussions which we had in past, the in-depth knowledge, the understanding of legal and tax implication, operating across jurisdictions, which actually has become essential. And Vidhi is the right person for all of us to explain, what is actually, between India and Australia, covering the compliances, taxation, regulatory considerations, which are vital for professionals engaged in cross borders work. So, once again, thank you, Vidhi, for joining. And like I said, the initiatives have been immense from the Directorate, the Global Week, the APO portal, the online certificate courses, which we have already launched for US, UK. UK's second batch is starting from the 24th of November. So I would sincerely request members to just register if not done till today. And going forward, from the Directorate, we have planned to initiate the launch of certificate courses for Australia and then for Canada and maybe in future for New Zealand. So this Australian market first batch most likely will start from 15th of December, between 15th of December till 15th of January. So certainly I would know, and we've got the way we've got a response from members. Australia, again, the certificate course will be very useful for members to understand the accounting systems, taxations, frameworks, and compliances requirements to help them to expand globally. And then again, the languages, again, very important for those who want to learn foreign languages. Please visit the website of the WTO, the portal, the web page where you can find the German language course has already been launched. Please register. We are starting, number of batches have already happened. So now we are starting another batch for the German and organizing various language courses for our members and students. So these are some of the initiatives which we have taken from the WTO Directorate. And then there are a number of initiatives already planned for a couple of months going forward. So, and a most important event for all of us is the World Forum of Accountants, the WOFA 2.0, which is now being organized in 2026, 30th of January, 1st of February, and 2nd February 2026. So please register yourself if not done today. This is at India Expo Center and Mart Greater Noida with the theme National Building to Global Collaboration, Strengthening Trust, Enabling Growth. So this is a lot of exclusive sessions on outsourcing, on global capabilities. So an opportunity for members to create networking collaboration between themselves. With this, I once again extend a warm welcome to all the participants, the speaker, the moderator, everybody who's encouraged us to keep organizing these Global Udan webinar series. So thank you once again. I'm sure we'll have a lot of interaction. We'll have a lot of insight discussed and would have tax and legal dimensions understanding of cross-border service delivery between India and Australia. So thank you very much. And over to you, Sailesh. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, and good morning, all. I'm really thankful to Director WTO and CA Abhay Chhaja and Sanjeev Kumar Singhal ji. So, and I'm really appreciating your work that you are doing, sir. You are doing in APO and GCC. Those are the platforms which really help us as a member in a practice, and I'm really thankful. And WTO is doing really wonderful things, sir. And I really welcome all of you. And from starting from today, let me tell me about myself. I'm CA Sailesh Wadhwania. I'm a chartered accountant in practice. So I practice in the ESG sustainability, data analytics, and AI consulting services at Ekatva Consulting Services Private Limited. And I'm also faculty of various platform of ICI, including AI, and I'm a faculty of a CPA too. So today's session is taken by a Miss Vidhi Ashik Modi, and it's my immense pleasure to introduce her as a Australian CPA registered BS agent, founder of Pinnacle Advisors and offshore accountancy practice based on Worli, South Mumbai. She has done his graduation from UNSW Sydney. Vidhi brings nearly a decade of experience working with leading CA firms in Sydney, and her contribution have been widely recognized. She was a top 3 finalist as IABACA Businesswoman of the Year 2025, a UNSW brand ambassador. Great. Passionate about education, she also shares valuable insights through her YouTube channel and initiatives like Lighthouse Projects. Today, Vidhi will be speaking on the legal and tax implication of a cross-border services delivery between Australia and India, with a special focus on the practical application of the double taxation avoidance agreement. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Vidhi Ashik Modi. We are honored to have you with us. The floor is yours, Vidhi ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Abhay sir. Thank you so much, Sailesh ji. I really appreciate the honor of being one of these speakers, invited by the prestigious Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. It's amazing to know how much ICA has been doing. And before I go into a quick introduction, I wanted to let all the participants know today that I was part of WOFA this year, World Forum of Accountants. And when I initially left India to study in Australia 10 years ago, I was not able to see so much of traction into the international space. And I'm extremely proud to say that once I've returned, after returning back from Australia, I can see that ICAI is taking genuine efforts to connect with people across the globe, which helps all Indian chartered accountants to reach to areas which was never imagined 10 years ago. So thank you so much, and I'm extremely honored to be part of the session today. So thank you for the kind introduction, and I'll take the lead from here, and we'll start for today's session. The topic for today, let me quickly share the PowerPoint presentation, and I'll take everyone. Yes, just give me a minute, and okay. Define that. Okay, perfect. Okay, can the technical team help me? Sanket, can you help me? Are you able to see the PowerPoint presentation that I'm presenting? Okay, okay, give me a minute. Yeah, I'm just trying to get that here via a shared screen. Perfect. Here we go. Yes. Thank you everyone for your patience. So I'll kickstart today's session. The topic for today is going to be from Australia to India. That's kind of the tagline we have, but the technical topic that we'll be covering today is understanding legal and tax implications in cross-border service delivery. So let's start the session today. Okay, perfect. Okay. So I'll quickly let everyone know about myself, as mentioned by Sailesh ji, that my name is Vidya Ashik Modi. I'm a passionate Australian chartered accountant. I completed my education from Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand. I'm also a registered BAS agent. BAS agent basically means someone who specializes into the Goods and Service Tax Act as per the Australian laws. I'm soon to be a registered tax agent in next 1 month. I've submitted for my license and hopefully look forward to having it. I'm the founder of my firm Pinnacle Advisors. I'll take everyone through a brief description about my experience, and we'll kickstart with the technical session for today. I completed my graduation in 2025 from University of Mumbai, after which I went to Australia as an international student. I did my Masters of Professional Accounting from the University of New South Wales, which is one of the top 8 Australian universities. After which I was, grateful enough to have the opportunity to work with one of the top 50 Australian accountancy practices. That's when I kickstarted my career into the public practice space in Australia. Soon after, I did my chartered accountancy from Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand. During COVID, I was extremely grateful enough to have got the time to work from home, which led me to further pursue my passion and build my expertise into taxation, Australian taxation. To practice and lodge tax returns in Australia, you need to be a registered BAS agent and then a registered tax agent. With 10 years of critical accounting and tax expertise, I decided to move back to my home country, India, Mumbai, to stay close to my family. And since last 2 years, I have founded my own boutique offshore accountancy practice, Pinnacle Advisors. We are based in Burli, South Mumbai, and providing two area of main services. One is B2B. In business to business, we strategically help boutique accountancy practices located in regional Australia and help them with offshoring and outsourcing services, which is a niche. We focus to the boutique accountancy practices. In B2C, we help Australian businesses, especially small and medium businesses, anywhere from starting up an entity in Australia all the way to lodgement of tax returns. Anyone who is wanting to invest in India and anyone wanting to go out of India and invest in Australia, we help them as a single strategic point of contact. Other than my work, I love mentoring and I love speaking. I've been honored to be part of few webinars and sessions where I spoke about my experience. I'm hungry to create change. I love talking about confidence and communication, especially for women in our country. I enjoy in my free time. I love spending time with my lovely family and my younger sister. And I do a lot of journaling. I believe in the power of meditation and truly in the power of creating more and more value through everything that you put in on daily basis. Now, kick starting with the topic for today. Just to let everyone know that the flow for today would be that first I'll discuss the web PowerPoint. I'll take forward through the topic for today. After which, at 12:30 p.m., Sailesh, CA Sailesh, would probably ask, not probably, will surely ask questions of all the participants, and I will take them one by one. Again, ask me questions, make this session fun, interesting. It's all about asking questions and learning from it. No question is good, bad, silly, or not. I want every one of you to come with an open mind, challenge me, ask me questions. I am here to learn from you, obviously, after what I would conduct the session for. So let's kickstart the session for today. So when I was, invited by the guest speaker, invited as a guest speaker by ICAI, the first question they had is that, ma'am, what do you think? Which topic can you cover for today, right? And then I discussed it with my team internally here, and I was like, which topic do you think can be covered? So they said that, ma'am, today if you go on Google and you type, right, you get everything, right? So I am not going to, so it makes no sense of talking about something which is just technical. Obviously, that's the reason that I'm here. But my approach for today is going to be that I'm literally going to take the live examples, I'm going to take the live case studies and take them as an example to understand the technical topic for today. So after which, a lot of people across LinkedIn and social media handles reached out to me asking me about that many people are providing services to countries, providing services to businesses and individuals outside India, whether it's USA, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Germany is coming up. So they are like, how do we understand where is our point of taxation? So this is the normal conversations that we have in the technical space. So then I thought that taking up this topic and understanding in brief what can be the legal and tax implications of anyone who is doing cross border, which means anywhere outside India or with another country, and delivering something. So I have literally broken down today's PowerPoint presentation into three key pillars. The three other key pillars. One is, yes, 95% of the audiences will be people with accounting background. I have made sure that our PPT are not boring and they're engaging with someone who even has just the basic knowledge of what is cross-border service delivery. Second, it's going to be clear, to the point, and relevant. Third, but most, if you are investing 2 hours of your time on a Friday morning, you're in India, overlapping with the afternoon. In Australia, it's a Friday afternoon. And it overlaps with the timing when they finish for the week and they're about to go for the weekend. So I can see from the WhatsApp group that many people from Australia are also part of the session. So I want to make sure that you spend your afternoon, Friday afternoon, not regretting that, oh, why did I not do something else? But so I want you to make the most out of the session today, whether you're sitting in Australia, whether you're sitting in India. So let's kickstart. Okay. So what is the meaning of tax implications? Okay. So we'll go ahead with an example, but before that, understanding that our base for today will be everything going from India. So India will be the base. I will keep in mind about the basics or the normal situations we all are in or we want to be in, which is delivering from India. Assuming that the base would be India. So as you can see that growing collaboration, WOFA was one of the examples wherein it was actually growing. The collaboration between India and the world is growing. So when there is any kind of a work that has been delivered from India and it's being consumed or taken and the receiving end is outside India, then the common question that we have is that in which jurisdiction does the individual or the company providing the services will be taxed? So these are some of the common questions based on my experience, based on my research, and based on my discussion with the technical team as well at ICAI, that Tax deducted at source. These are the questions. Where is the tax deducted, or in which jurisdiction should the tax be deducted? What is the GST applicability? Obviously, we all know that it's export of service from India, but usually, how does the law works outside India as well? Third, the most important and the basis for today would be the tax residency. Okay, I'm not talking about citizenship. I'm not talking about the visa. I'm talking about the tax residency and reporting. Fourth is, if you end up paying tax in an overseas jurisdiction, how do you claim the foreign tax credit today? Okay, so the basis of for our discussion today is going to be double taxation avoidance agreement. And what is this going to be? Okay, before we go into this, let me bring you few some questions which can help us in forming the foundation of our session for today. So practically, the right thing for me to do is cover up important concepts, because it's practically impossible to cover everything in a 2-hour session. But I'll definitely make sure that all of you attending today would get your mind thinking into what all can be the avenues that we can think about also after this session. So what are some of the common questions we actually hear? So if an Indian individual, an Indian resident for tax purpose, services to a client in Australia, the reason that I'm an Australian chartered accountant, my topic for today obviously will be in comparison to India and Australia. So I will be talking about two jurisdictions as a foundation to interpret the DTAA in simple language, which is India and Australia. So if an Indian tax resident services to a client in Australia from India, where is the tax payable? Second question is, again, elaborating on the points that we spoke in the previous PPT, should the Australian client deduct tax before making the payment? Because if you're delivering it to the Australian client will make the payment. If an individual travels to Australia, which I do roughly 2 to 3 times a year, for temporary work, does that create a tax liability there? Does receiving money from abroad, which is from Australia, automatically means it's a foreign income? If both countries try to tax the same income, again, a beautiful place where I feel so many of things can be spoken, there can be so many topics that can be covered, there are so many broader umbrellas that fall into this one broad question. Who takes the lead? If an income is subject to tax in Australia, if an income is subject to tax in India, where will be the taxing point? So, double taxation avoidance agreement is a tax treaty between India and Australia, which clearly helps in professionals like us to determine for our clients or determine for ourselves as to where the tax jurisdiction would be. If an item of income is subject to tax in both the countries, then which country will overrule, which will supersede the other country? So, taking forward to it, like I mentioned, DTA is a tax treaty. It decides which country gets the first right to tax. If it is being taxed in both the countries, it really provides relief of double taxation, which we'll understand how. Prevents artificial shifting of profits. As you can see, so many names have been quite famous in the in news these days of how they shift profit outside India, which can be tax erosion. So it also prevents businesses or individuals to, not to evade tax. DTA does not eliminate tax liability. Please make sure this is not a way to run away from tax. If tomorrow Australian Taxation Office, which is like our income tax department, if either of them comes knocking down your door, there needs to be a substantial evidence in the law which can prove why you are reporting this income in India and not in Australia, and why you're reporting this income in Australia and not in India. There cannot be a reason that under DTA I don't need to disclose it in either of the jurisdiction. That will never happen. Okay, and it again it makes it clear that which country will supersede, as well as which country, as per the DTA, will not supersede. Okay, so this act, okay, in my last slide, I will also let everyone know about how can you go and have a look at the actual law, article by article. But for today, we have spoken to the two important concepts, which I'll take through, which is residency, and second is the source rule. But before we go that, let's take a step by step approach. Okay, so now I'm going and actually into the technical way of how is DTAA to be used. Usually, in which circumstances can DTAA be used? Okay, so taking a step-by-step approach, it's always nice to have a structured method to delivering something, so that if there are any questions, feel free to write the questions slide by and let me know. I will take a structured approach wherein I'll first describe the basics and then go into the technical concept. So the basics forms into 3 steps. First is residency. So the question that comes usually in our mind when we interpret DTAA in understanding the tax implications is that where is the person or the company resident? As we all know, most of us are accountants in the room. Tax residency is very different to citizenship, is very different to where I live. It's very different to where I work. It's very different to from which country I get my income. Tax residency is a gray area, and you require a lot of expertise in understanding that gray area as to in which country is the individual or the business resident. Obviously, we have all the rules which I'll go into deeper, but understanding the inherent meaning of where the person has his or her base, or where does the company has the base. And why does it matter? Like it mentions, it determines your global income. In India, if you are a resident, an ordinary resident, you are taxed on your worldwide income. In the same way, in Australia, if you are a tax resident, you are eligible. You are not eligible. You have to compulsorily by law declare worldwide income. Second, the nature of income again. How that one source of income will be treated depends on from which type of income is it salary income, is it professional fees, is it business profits, is it rental income, capital gains. Okay, so it all depends on which source of income it is. Double taxation avoidance agreement literally has a clause, item by item, article by article, which says the rulings, which says the treatment of tax based on different categories of income. And third, like I mentioned, this is more specifically from the business perspective. Is there a business presence in the other country? So if I'm sitting in India, for me, the other country would be Australia, which is the context for today. That understands which DTAA needs to be referred to. It helps me in understanding where the business will be present, so that I can understand where the taxing point can be. Now, what is the definition of business presence? Obviously, we need to dig deeper into what the law actually says. Okay, so let's take an example. Ria is a lovely team member at Pinnacle Advisors, and she has helped me in preparing the PowerPoint presentation for today. So she said that we should have your name with you, but I said, no, let's have your name. So let's take an example that Ria is an Indian individual who is a tax resident in India. Okay. Ria provides professional services, which she literally sits from the comfort of her home, which most of us do these days is remote services. Something that COVID has taught us is remote setup, remote services. And from a freelancing portal, say for example, she, gets a work from an Australian company. And, she literally provides them bookkeeping services. Let's take an example of bookkeeping services. So she completes the bookkeeping services. Because the client is in Australia and he expects to make the payment in Australian dollars, she raises an invoice in Australian dollars from a Zoho accounting software. Zoho is getting traction in India. So let's take an example of Zoho. However, the client is like, I will not deposit the money in any account other than Australia. I don't trust the source. I also don't want to pay international fees. So then she sets up a bank account in Australia and the client deposits money in Australia. So now Ria is physically in India, is an Indian resident for tax purpose, performs the services from India, however, raises an invoice in Australian dollars, and the money from the client is deposited in AUD in Australia, but she's not in Australia. So then what and where is the taxation point here? Like in which jurisdiction is she subject to tax? Okay, now coming to the most important concept, right? As you can say here, residency concept. India being the primary home country for audiences. In India, as we all know, I mean, the point of origin, lot of different concepts are also being elaborated in past years. But if you are in India for roughly 182 days, and or 60 days, 365 days, these are usually some of the rules of residence in India that will determine your residency status. Okay, in India, we usually have three brackets in which the residency status of an individual is determined. Just to make it clear that my example for today is purely going to be an individual, because it just helps in understanding the law better. Rather than me going into the complications of a trust, partnership, company, I'm just going to take an example of an individual. So it is broken down into a resident and ordinary resident, taxed on global income as mentioned. Second is resident but not ordinarily resident. Only foreign income taxed only if business controlled from India. Again, technical. Non-resident taxed only on the Indian sourced income. Okay, so this is the law as per India into three categories. So number one, put it simply, first is whether you earn money in India or whether you earn money in Australia. If you are an ROR as per the above rules in India, okay, you are taxed on the worldwide income from Australia. Example, if I have income from Dubai, if I have income from India, USA, if I have income from UK and from India, all of that needs to be included in the individual tax return here in India. If I have paid any taxes in this jurisdiction, I can claim that as a foreign tax credit. Obviously, there are a lot of buts and ifs. Just from the concept clarity, we can claim them in India. Second is, there are few buts and ifs as to how the foreign income will be taxed in India if you fall into RNOR. Third, which is an area of interest for me, which is NRI, non-resident income. So if I'm a non-resident, based on the above test, after answering all those tests, 182 days, 60 days, 365 days, last 4 years, if the answer to all of them is no, I'm a non-resident, and only an income arising from India source, from where do you get that money? If the answer is India, then only you need to disclose that in the tax return. So Indian sourced income is money arising from India, fixed deposits from India, Indian bank, Indian companies, if you have dividend income, bank interest income, salary income, all of that. Again, a lot of buts and ifs, but just to clear. Then RIA is an ROI tax resident in India. My apologies, the name Vidhi was not changed by my team. RIA, in our example, we assume that RIA is a ROR, which is a resident and ordinarily resident in India, which means she fulfills the residency test in India and is a tax resident in India, which means she's taxed on global/worldwide income. So if RIA is earning dividend income from a Dubai company, it's subject to taxation in India. If RIA has a foreign property in UK, in London, she is subject to tax on that income in India. Okay. Third is that if she is in Australia and she again invests in a property there and she sold the property, she's subject to tax in India. This is what the Indian law says. Okay, as per the residency concept, this is what happens. Okay. The beauty lies here. How does DTA then come in place, and what is the base for us here for today's session? So understanding that our session for today is limited to Australia and India. So these are some of the rules that were as per prevalent as per the income tax law in India. The other rule is prevalent, as now I'll talk about what is the rule in Australia. So before we understand what DTA rules is, we'll understand what is the rule here in India if RIA is a tax resident in India, as well as what is the rule here in Australia. So in Australia, the Income Tax Assessment Act basically says that they decide on many factors. Obviously, one of them is that if someone stays in Australia for more than 182 to 183 days or more, then they are treated as a tax resident, which means you are subject to worldwide income. This is same as ROR in India. But there are also other factors in which Australia decides as to how the residency status would be. So Australia decides tax based on where the person usually lives and works. Now, so my mind is like that if I'm a professional, how do I correlate? What is the definition of lives and work? Ria can work in India for 6 to 7 months, and for the rest of the period, she can work in Australia. So, where is the taxing point here? So, again, to understand where the taxing point is here, we understood what is the Indian law, we understood what is the Australian law. So, now, as per the Australian income tax law, it is also important to understand where is the person domiciled. When I say domiciled, whether they have a permanent place of abode outside Australia or not. So, if Ria is a permanently living in India, she has her house in India, she lives with her parents or with her family here in India, then she happens to be outside Australia, her permanent place is outside Australia. But then the question in our mind is for 6 to 7 months, she, whenever she travels here, let's put it that way, she lives with her family, but she also has another place, her own place in Australia. Then both the places can be taken up as a permanent place of abode. So then in this situation, how do you determine the tax residency position of that person in Australia? And not to forget that the money is being deposited in Australia. Australian dollar AUD currency invoice has been raised. Ria is physically in India. So then how do you work? What if she travels back and forth from India to Australia? So now the basics is that she's a resident of India. She lives here with her family. She has an Indian bank account, but the money is not deposited here. She renders her services from India. Okay. She continues to travel to Australia. Whereas in Australia, the money is deposited in the Australian bank account. Okay. Assuming that her permanent place of abode is in India, which means she's a non resident of Australia. Okay. There can be a possibility that her residency in Australia can change if she does not meet the condition of, say, 183 days, anywhere between 182 to 183 days. Then, here, if the residency status is not determined, there will be issues for us in understanding which area will that form into. Now, India will be saying that, okay, you are an ROI, which means you have to worldwide income. You have to pay tax on worldwide income. But Australia says that you have deposited money here, which is the source. The money is being deposited into Australian bank account. You're raising an invoice in AUD, right? What is your basis of telling us that you are not subject to taxation here? So let me assume that Australian Taxation Office comes knocking down my door and say, okay, hello, you have a Westpac bank account. This is your name, okay, and this is the passport entries for immigration that we have a few coming and going from Australia. So now we want to know, why aren't you lodging any tax returns in Australia? I'm not saying whether Ria has done something right or wrong. I just want to provide an answer. How will I provide an answer? In understanding where her permanent establishment is. So for India, tax on foreign income only applies if an Indian business creates a presence in Australia. Right? So if in India, assuming that the permanent establishment is in Australia, then there might be questions as to where her residency is or where a residency can be. But again, it's a very gray area, which means that a permanent establishment question only arises if Ria or her team works physically in Australia for meaningful duration. That meaningful duration can be anywhere around 183 days, which can raise alarm in her tax residency status here in India. Obviously, we can fall back on the 4-year rule that we have in India, but it's still worth knowing that has she triggered non residency in India or has she triggered a residency in Australia? If she has triggered that in both the countries, then we need to look into DTAA. So again, a lot of questions come here into it, that do you have a fixed place, do you have a project office, or do you have an agent with authority to conclude contracts in Australia? Because if the decisions are taken from Australia, again, the question of residency will need to be reassessed. So, assuming here for Ria that there is no permanent establishment in Australia, and Australia generally does not tax on business profits, providing professional services falls into the business category in Australia. Okay, so in this situation, India retains the taxing right, is what the DTAA is interpreting. Again, there are a lot of technical words as contracting state at this state if you go and read the DTA in detail. But today, because of the time duration that we have and the concept clarity is very important, before you go and interpret the DTAA, it is extremely important for us to determine the residency of that individual. Where is this individual tax resident in? If it is in India, then you have to fulfill the 3 to 4 rules. And based on that, ROR, resident and not ordinarily resident, RNOR, and NRO, non-resident. In Australia, it's just two, which is resident and non-resident. Okay. So keeping in facts, many people usually serves to an Australian clientele, which is here on the next slide, which is that Ria performs the work from India. She's physically based in India, assuming that she travels. Let's put it that way. Here it is written that you do not travel to Australia to deliver services. Assuming that she does or she does not do will determine her number of days in India. However, still the question of permanent establishment will remain, that where is a permanent base, where is her house, where is the decision making power. If Ria is operating under a company structure, where is that company located? For ease of understanding, we will consider that Ria is based out of India, provides services online from India, does not travel to Australia, and maintains her business presence here. So then, if there is assuming that there is no permanent establishment, there is no tax liability in Australia as per DTAA, okay, but income is fully taxable in India. That is from where the source is arising. DTAA will see that where is the services being provided from, where is it actually actioned from. In our situation, it is actioned from India, assuming that she is an Indian resident, stays in India as per the falls into either of the 4 questions, stating that she is a tax resident and ordinarily resident in India. She's sitting here in India providing services to Australian clientele, and she has a permanent establishment in India. She is not subject to taxation in Australia as per the DTAA. Income is fully taxable in India. However, if she has an Australian business number, which is like our GST number in India, again, more of an business number in Australia, she has a PAN number in Australia, which is known as tax file number. Then she needs to assess on the Australian taxation portal whether she has to lodge a nil return. That is something which will be on case by case basis. In our situation, assuming that Ria had never been to Australia, Ria have never been to any country, have never been to any cities in Australia, never physically been there, then she is only subject to taxation in India. Option 2, that Ria has been to Australia, Ria has lived there, and Ria has applied for a tax file number, which is a PAN number in Australia, then she needs to log in onto the Australian taxation portal, like the way we have an income tax department. We have to log in with our PAN number and a username and password. We also have to do the same thing in Australia. So in the Australian taxation portal, Ria needs to go and check whether there is a liability to lodge a nil return. Again, this can change. The requirement of lodging a tax return can change. If I can just get a minute, I'll just quickly sip a glass of water. So in option A, if Ria does not have a tax file number, if Ria does not have an Australian business number, Ria still, based on her passport, has opened her Australian bank account. Okay, money gets deposited into her Australian bank account. Because she is a non-resident in Australia, there is no tax that has been withheld from a bank account. There is no tax that is sitting in Australia on behalf of Ria. There is no foreign tax credit here that can be claimed in India because there is no foreign tax that has been paid. Alternatively, if Ria has a tax file number, the PAN number in Australia, has the Australian business number, she needs to understand whether she requires to lodge a nil tax return or declare that income in Australia. Again, it depends from situation to situation. Again, if the foreign tax credit is zero, then it's just zero because there is no tax that has been paid to Australia. Again, the DTA will supersede and say, so when the ATO comes knocking down Ria's doors and tell that, can you tell me why aren't you paying the tax in Australia? Then you say that as per the double taxation avoidance agreement between India and Australia, these are all the facts that I have. I'm the resident of India. I'm disclosing my income here in Indian tax return. I am not subject to taxation in Australia. This is the proof. Only because the money is being raised in AUD and the money is deposited in the Westpac bank account in Australia does not mean that I'm subject to Australian tax. So this is something that you need to obviously put on paper, have the calculation of your residency status. You need to, you can, if you're traveling back and forth from Australia, you can contact the immigration department, and the immigration department will give you a complete report, which is linked to my passport number, which will show how many number of days have I been physically in India, outside India, or in Australia. Accordingly, the Indian immigration will help you with that piece of information. The Australian immigration will help you with how many days you were in Australia. The Indian immigration will help you as to how many days you are in India. So this document is very important. It will determine your residency status. After determining your residency status, the next step is to determine the permanent establishment in India versus Australia. That is also one of the tests of residency, widely used to determine the residency status of companies usually, or let's put it that way, technically anyone other than individuals. But again, if you see the coherent meaning of permanent establishment, it all believes where is that person's permanently place of abode. Based on all of that, in our situation, we had two examples. One example of Ria, which is again, I'm rephrasing it again and again to get the concept clear, that Ria is an Indian tax resident, lives in India, performs the services from India, uh, provides everything from India, is an ROR in India. She's subject to tax in India only. In Australia, two situations. One is that she does not have a tax file number. She does not have an Australian business number. She just has opened up her bank account in Australia based on a passport number. She is not subject to taxation in Australia. Again, option two, if she has the tax file number in Australia, if she has applied for the ABN in Australia, she high chances of her to lodge a nil return in Australia. In both the cases, her foreign tax that she would be paying in Australia would be zero, and the foreign tax credit in India would be nil because even though nil return is being lodged, there is no tax that has been paid. Now, when will that individual in our situation, Ria, be compulsorily required to get the ABN and tax file number in Australia will be subjective. And that's why professionals like us can help, especially high net worth individuals, with understanding when it triggers, when they need to report, what they need to report. If it's nil, then which other kind of nil returns do they report in Australia? Okay. Like I mentioned, the meaning for today was tax implications on cross-border service delivery. Tax implication is being taken care by DTA, Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement. Cross-border means India providing services to Australia. services has been delivered, which means providing services to Australia. So for today, my focus was especially for people who are freelancers. Like I mentioned, after COVID, people have been very open to getting work done remotely. They are freelancers working from India. They are professional consultants. They are independent contractors like Ria. These are the important points to be considered for them. Assuming that they are ROR in India, what is the practical positioning? Ensure that their contract, if they have a contract with Australian businesses, the contract states clearly that the services are rendered from India. It is always nice to have either your, if so anyone providing export of services to Australia, or let's put it that way, anyone exporting services from India, they need to compulsorily register for GST irrespective of the turnover that they have, and they need to have a letter of undertaking. In this situation, the GST number can be used on the official contracts on the letterhead when they have a contract in place with these businesses in Australia. That contract with the GST number will be a good proof if ATO comes knocking down your door, say that, hey, hello, hi, can you show me what was the basis of receiving this money, from this Australian business? So you can say that, hello, this is the contract, and on the contract, the GST number is an Indian GST number provided by, example, state of Maharashtra. Uh, you know, Example. So that document can be a substantiating factor, a proof for you. Again, invoices using Indian business addresses. So if you are physically in India, you register for GST. Okay. As per the GST rules, I'm sure most of the professionals here would be, providing services or would be from the accounting background. We all know that we need to enter the code, the HSN code under which we provide the services. We need to either give CGST, SGST, or IGST component on the invoice. And as per the GST law, we need to have all the details: GST number, the complete address, email, all of that of the business generating the invoice or the individual generating the invoice, subject line. It would have description. It would have unit. It would have the price per unit. Say, for example, if I'm generating an invoice of $500 Australian dollars, then I need to write the description. Based on my registration, I had selected HSN codes. I need to use the right code. Say, for example, for accounting, it's 998222 example. Then I need to use that, and that's how I generate my invoice. So again, if tomorrow ATO comes to you, you show them that, hey, as per the Indian law, I'm registered for GST. This is my GST certificate. By law, these are the invoices that I have to create. These are the invoices that I have to maintain. And here you go. So this will prove your base that I'm registered in India. I'm sitting in India. Whatever is required as per the Indian law is being done by me. I'm not subject to taxation in Australia as per DTA. And this is the proof that I have. Again, maintain service evidence, very, very important. Something that I've learned the hard way is, as an accountant, is every communication you have with people outside India, every communication that we as professionals have with anyone outside India, very important to document it. Very, very, very important. Avoid using WhatsApp. I know a lot of my clients in Australia wants to just pick up a call and talk to me that, hey, Vidhi, let's just get it done. And I get them on a Google Meet. I get them to respond to their queries. We are responsible for lodging quarterly GST returns, and we tell them that we send the queries by email. Keep everything in writing, keep everything in record, which can be your point that yes, the GST return was being prepared from India, it was prepared by my business, or it was prepared by myself, and I'm registered for GST. Even though the money is deposited into the Australian bank account, it's the invoice is raised, from India. You need to have all of those documents in place to maintain the proof of record. Like I mentioned, it truly does not matter where the income is being deposited. It truly does not matter. From the DTA perspective, the FEMA rules might be different. Again, I'm not an expert into it, but as per my knowledge, as per the DTAA, how do you determine the tax residency does not depend on where the money is being deposited. Again, like I mentioned in Ria's case, the result is that the income is taxed in India. Any Australian withholding can be claimable as foreign tax credit. Now, in which areas, going a little off the topic, in which areas will RIA might be required to pay withholding taxes in Australia? In which examples? In Australia, if you're non-resident, the withholding tax obligations arise if there is an Australian real estate or a real property. Say, for example, Ria, an individual, even though is a tax resident in India, has a property, a real estate property, an apartment in Australia, and she sells that property or receives a rental income. By law, she needs to withhold a tax. So any Australian sourced property or any Australian sourced income, in our situation, income arising from that property, either in source of rental or in source of capital gains, you need to pay tax at the highest marginal rate in Australia because that's an Australian sourced income. Again, very highly technical what the article under DTAA states and how will that be included in the Indian tax return and how the foreign tax can be claimed. Like I mentioned, the rules are different for professional services, the rules are different for royalties, interest, dividends, the rules are different for real estate, rental properties or capital gains, the rules are very different for business profits. Again, it's highly technical in understanding from which industry the client comes, understanding that are there buts and ifs to the other law. Again, very highly technical. But to roughly cover up the proportion, it is very important to understand what forms the basis of DTA. And like I mentioned, residency as a topic is extremely important in terms of understanding how do you interpret the DTA. Again, go from the basics. If it's residency, then understanding what is the residency law in India, understanding what is the residency law in Australia, understanding if there is any gray area into this thing, then we have to come to DTA. In our situation, it was clear that Ria is a resident and ordinarily a resident in India based on our assumption. But because the money was being deposited in Australia, because the services were delivered online, which area would be considered as the benchmark for taxing, which would be the taxing point, which country, which jurisdiction would be the taxing point? That is where the confusion lies. Again, very different that if Ria is a ROR and a non-resident in Australia, but travels back and forth to Australia and has a rental property there. If that rental property is earning money and the money is being deposited in Australia, then how does that matter? And how does that work? Just to confirm from the technical team that my video is still being recorded and it's being shown. All good. Okay. Thank you. Perfect. Right. Like I mentioned, DTA would be a place not to invade the tax, not to avoid the tax, cannot have a tax erosion in terms of profit sharing or profit, passing on the profit to the other jurisdiction. It would strictly be limited to understanding how do you avoid yourself from paying double tax. Does not avoid yourself from paying tax, avoid yourself from paying double tax. Like I mentioned initially, our slide initially was more focused on how Indian companies can how Indian companies can leverage DTAA. For Indian firms serving Australian clients, we have to again understand what is the difference between India. One second, I think I've got a message from the technical team. Okay, perfect. Can the technical team review my video on the screen? Okay, perfect, great. Can you also see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We can see your PowerPoint presentation and also you.
Okay, perfect. All good. Okay, so initially, sorry for the interruption. Initially, we saw how the individual example that we took, how does the double taxation avoidance agreement works in the individual capacity. Whereas now, if like I mentioned, that if we are looking into the any other business structure area, which is other than individuals, we need to understand how would the DTA be leveraged. Again, we would require another session for this topic to be taken because it's highly technical. But to touch base, for Indian firms serving Australian clients, Indian businesses, anyone other than an individual, if they serve an Australian client, again, the basics still remain the same. They need to understand the residency rules here in India based on the business structure, but they still need to make sure that they avoid the permanent establishment risk, which is decision making shifts to Australia if RIA has set up a company and that company has also set up its base in Australia, and the board of directors are based in Australia, and if they make the decisions from there, then they are at a risk of permanent establishment, which would require them to also be a resident in Australia, resulting in non-resident here or resulting in a residency here. Again, a very gray area, something that we need to look into it. But companies need to make sure that from which place is the decision making taking place. Um, Again, staff or an agent operates. Again, the word agent comes into place when it's industry specific, right? The context of agent changes. So again, based on that industry, understanding what is the importance of decision making, where are all the decisions made, is it made from the headquarters, is it made from the branch, are the board of directors only people making the decisions, or are there agents involved who are representatives of the business also liable to make the decisions. Again, the area, like I mentioned, to avoid a permanent establishment, very important to understand where the delivery is taking place. Other than the above factors, understanding where is the contract being taken from. If RIA or a business, assuming ABC business, ABC Pty Limited is having registration in India, having an Indian business number, is an ROR, then are the contracts having all those informations? Again, in terms of the negotiations and sign off, from where is the invoice being raised? Who is signing the contract? From where is the contract being signed? The person who's signing the contract, from where is that decision making place when the contracts are being signed? Again, like I mentioned, it depends on industry to industry as to avoid appointing employees or agents in Australia. Again, if that person who is based out of Australia is doing majority of the work in terms of decision making work, which is one of the factors in establishing permanent establishment, which is one of the important base factor for understanding how does the residency will be affected of that company or of that individual. Again, very important to understand how that overall work takes place. Document in writing, creating that flow charts and understanding what will be the benefit of this country if they decide to shift their permanent establishment. That is where most of the accountants like ourselves are, probably hired, or we probably provide our independent services to understanding how does the tax structuring and asset protection of these companies should work. A lot of people are okay with changing that tax structure, provided that they benefit in terms of saving money, or how strategically can they save money if they choose to take up that change in the residency factor. Lot of compliance, lot of paperwork, lot of tax advisory and structuring. So, like I mentioned, that extremely critical. It's extremely critical to understand the different articles of DTAA. But the foundation of DTAA on which we have, met today for the discussion is to understand how and when will DTAA will be applied. What is the basis of DTA? Residency is the basis of DTA, and understanding how does the residence affect their individual residency status in both the countries. And in our context for today is India and Australia. Moving ahead, in understanding, in summary for today, understanding that the cross-border taxation, India and Australia, is technically, it's not a technical puzzle as it mentions here. It's truly about understanding where is the economic life and operation control truly sits, like I mentioned in my previous slides. Also, once the residency and permanent establishment rules are clear, DTA can then go ahead and understand under which categories will the business flow based on this slide, which I'll go ahead on the three pillars that we spoke about. Yes, the three determination pillars that always first the residency is decided for an individual. Second, after which we'll go into the different nature of income. Like I said, that whether it's a salary income, interest income, dividend income, professional fees, business income, rental profit, capital gains, royalties, depending on nature of income, the DTAA has a complete article which mentions everything step by step as to in which category things fall. And after the residency is being determined, what are the rules of these different categories? The focus for today's example, with the help of, RIA as an example, we only focused on delivering professional services, example, bookkeeping, accounting, taxation services remotely from India. A freelancer, a contractor, or an individual sitting from of their home, India provides services to anyone. Outside India, they are subject to tax in India provided they understand their residency requirements, provided they understanding where the delivery is taking place. From the DTA perspective, it doesn't matter where the money is being deposited or in which currency is the invoice raised. But from where the invoice is raised is important. Moving to pretty much the end of a session for today, the idea of any law, from the legal perspective, we also have economic cooperation and trade agreement. I would request ICAI to take that topic once as well. A very interesting area of understanding how are the legal implications of the business. The second and the most important topic is to understand how are the tax implications which can be established by double taxation avoidance agreements, and to let the audiences know that we do not just have double taxation avoidance agreement between India and Australia. We have it many other countries, and it helps in understanding the basis of DTAA in those jurisdictions. Finding the right country will always help. So if there is an individual who is providing a service from India to USA, it's important to have a look at that DTA. If it's from India to UK, if it is from India to Europe, again, every country would have a different way of understanding what is their base. And the base would start with the residency concept, and then residency will be determined based on the business structure, whether it's individual, partnership, companies, trust, and then understanding how would the tax structuring take place if they are at a risk of residency, and then understanding DTAA, how and which place would be subject to the taxation jurisdiction in which they will fall under. So I guess in terms of my session for today, I have, covered up most of the things. As part of my growing interest in delivering such technical insights, I would be more than happy to have your feedback. I have started my own YouTube channel in Flow with Vithi, where I speak about Australian specific technical concepts. One of the recent videos was what is the difference between outsourcing versus offshoring. A lot of other topics which I'll speak about, which is relevant to the Indian and the Australian context that we are in. I look forward to bringing more and more people from Australia on my channel, on my LinkedIn, and talk to them about what their perspective is. What are some of the challenges that they are facing in Australia when it comes to offshoring, outsourcing? How can advisory as another area of service can also be explored for skilled professionals like ourselves? What is the market out there? A lot of projects which I can't openly talk about right now are coming my way, wherein we as part of Pinnacle Advisors will be talking about how India can truly be a game changer when it comes to outsourcing and offshoring. But other than that, also we are focusing on the area of bringing more and more Australian businesses to set up in India. Why WUFA? I suggest why World Forum of Accountants. I suggest most of the accountants should be part of this event. Come, talk to people, understand what's happening around the world, and understand how can we take it forward from there. Because now is the right time to take the benefit of this global landscape, and truly Australia is a country which can be welcoming, especially after COVID and the way the geopolitical space has been changing. Recently, I was nominated by one of the prestigious organization in Australia for Businesswoman of the Year, and when I spoke to a lot of people who are into the political landscape, and that's what they said, that we want more and more. We want more and more people to come up to provide services in areas relating to the Australian space. So feel free to connect. You can scan this code and get to know more about me, more about what I do. Connect me with on LinkedIn. It can be a normal conversation. It doesn't just has to be work. And I would be more than happy to connect, learn from everything that's going around, and make the most of the space, and look forward to staying more and more connected with ICAI as well.
Wonderful, wonderful, Vidhi ma'am. It was
Yeah.
really nice that you taken a sessions. Like, we have understood everything that whatever you have said, and most important, the question that we had in our mind was resolved. But still, I was moderating, the question answer sessions and the chat sessions of the from our audience, and I have curated near 4 to 5 questions that we really need to have an answer of these from the topic that you have covered. So, if you allow me, I would like to ask the question there from our audiences.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, great, 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 great. So, the first question the audience was asking about, so you already, I think you have already covered, but still, if you can give us a light about this question is, if I am an Indian accountant providing bookkeeping or tax review services to an Australian CA firm, should I charge GST on my invoices?
No, right. So no, it's a very interesting question. So I think anyone from India providing services to Australian firm will fall under export of service category, and export of service has 0% GST, zero rated GST. So you do not need to charge GST, but in the invoice you need to take up IGST code, which shows that IGST is 0%. You need to show that in the invoice, but there is no GST component, but you still need to show that in the invoice.
Understood. So, it's related to export of services. Am I right?
Yes, export of services, yes.
Understood, understood. So the second questions that the audience is asking about is, what if my team occasionally travels to in Australia for training or client meetings? Does that trigger tax residency or P risk?
Okay, can you repeat the question again? The team or the member travels to, sorry, can you repeat that question?
The whole team. It's talking about whole team.
Okay, correct. Okay, correct. So to answer your question, let me have a look here. So the same questions are being posted here as well. Okay, correct. So The clear answer is no, because again, the question comes to where is your permanent place of establishment? So, just if I'm traveling for a 3 weeks travel to Australia, it will not change my residency status in terms of the rules as well. So, I don't think there is any risk of PE as such. Yes, if the travel is substantial enough, which can be around 180 days or more, then it's worth thinking. But I don't think back and forth travel for few duration would raise that risk. No.
Understood. So logic behind is about the residency status only. Am I right?
Correct, correct. So the logic
Okay.
falls into the residency status. So if you are an Indian resident, you need to understand out of this four tests, which test do you fulfill? And one of the tests says about that 180 days. So I assume that if the team from India is going to Australia on a business travel, I don't anticipate the business travel being more than maximum of 1 to 1.5 months until and
Right.
unless the person is posted there on some or the other project by another company or something like that.
Understood. Really great answer.
Yeah.
So the third question that the audience is asking about, the for freelancers or contractors working from India, what contract clauses help clearly establish that services are rendered from India?
Oh, so is your question relating to what should be included in that contract?
Yes, yes. And what should be included in the contract, and which clauses that we should have inside the contract, or maybe it's already in there.
Okay, correct. So, first, most important thing is I would suggest all of you to understand how we. Okay, so I would suggest all of us to understand how usually would we draft the letter of engagements for a client here in India. Okay, so if this person A is coming to me for bookkeeping kind of services, in my letter of engagement, which would be kind of my contract also, should include who will perform the service, what services are being performed, how is the data protection taken place, because Australians are very specific about data protection. So you need to write a clause regarding data protection. You need to write who would be the point of contact. So if we at Pinnacle Advisors is taking up the engagement, I write down my name as the principal point of contact and the payment structure. So these are the five most important pillar points to be added in your document. So your contract can also be your letter of engagement, obviously, and your letter of engagement can be kind of your contract. But in your contract, on the letterhead, mention all the information like GST number, your resident, your company's address. If you're operating from home, then your residential address, anything that's registered with the GST on the GST portal.
Understood. Understood. Really great answer. But when you are talking about these, Australians are very keen, have an interest about about their data protections. So if we are providing this question is from my side, because we were talking about these data protections. So we have in India DPDP Act. It's coming on. The rules are also being
Mm.
formatted, and so I just want to know about that. What are the laws that applicable about these data protections
Right,
that we have to ensure?
right, right. So, to be honest, Sailesh, if we have to go into Data Protection Act in Australia, we need to have another session altogether to take
Great.
place. But to answer your question in short, you can Google Australian data privacy laws.
Understood. So, just from your point of view, you are already providing a services, outsourcing services to Australia. So,
Hmm.
what measures you take?
Correct. Correct. Okay, so let me break down this answer, which I think would be of good interest as well to a lot of other people. There is a difference between being registered in India versus being registered in Australia.
Okay.
I am a chartered accountant from Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand, and by bylaws, as a fully qualified and voting member, I have to provide my documentation in a way which covers the professional ethics obligation also in my letter
Understood.
of engagement. Right now, if there is someone unlike us who is not an Australian accountant, or who is not following under the bylaws, then they need to first understand what they can legally put on paper from the ICAI perspective, as per the Indian law perspective. If that person is neither an accountant in India, neither an accountant in Australia, then it's a simple contract which would include all the things on which a dispute can happen. Example, if
And
tomorrow I'm raising an invoice to the client and I'm telling him that for this service, I'm charging you this much. And then that person should not say that, oh, I didn't thought that for a 1 hour call you would charge me. But that 1 hour call was my time provided for the consultation, based on which they decided how to structure the business. You know what I mean? But I cannot charge that until and unless I have that in the letter of engagement. Right. So
understood.
again, I would suggest feel free to reach out to me on one-on-one, and I can
Great.
absolutely share a few templates to people who can help. How do we structure our letter of engagements? And few points might not be, applicable to people from India, because that's what the difference is between us providing that services. Because again, I am a registered agent in Australia. I'm a qualified accountant, so I have to follow the bylaws of those institutes, even though I'm sitting from India.
Understood. Great, great, great.
Yeah.
So another question has been asked from our audience is, if I open an Australian bank account to receive client payments, does that impact my tax residency or source of income? This question is already implying that we can open an Australian bank account. Am I right?
Correct, correct. So I think this was the basis of the presentation today, that it does not matter whether the money is deposited in India or in Australia from the DTAA perspective. FEMA rules can be different. Okay, FEMA rules are different, but from DTAA perspective, it says that if you open a bank account in Australia and the money is deposited there, but the delivery is happening from India, you are not subject to tax in Australia. Again, please do not take my answer as a statement. It's a question mark. We need to go dig deeper into the subjective facts of that people or that person or that individual or that company, and then we can determine, which is like a tax advisory service that we provide, based on which we can understand, on basis of which we can understand that where is that person subject to tax. But the simple answer is no. If the money is being deposited in Australia and the services is provided from India, there is no problem. You are not subject to tax in Australia, you are subject to tax in India.
Okay, great answer, ma'am. Great answer.
Yeah.
So, due to time paucity, let me take just last questions from our audience, and I think it will be, what documentations or evidence should I maintain to prove that services were performed entirely from India?
Correct. So obviously one would be the GST license. So just to let everyone know, if there is an export of service, which is in our situation, you need to compulsorily register for GST in India. There is no exception to that, which means you would have a GST number. Second,
Right.
if you have the GST number and you have to lodge GST returns, you have to fulfill the requirements of the GST invoice. So then that invoice will be a document, a proof that I mentioned in the PPT. Second, that contract on which your GST number will be there, your registered business address, the point of contact, the GST number should be there. So two most important document is the invoice and the second is the contract. And third, which is not legally an important document from the DTA perspective, but written emails with a letter with the company's signatory, Pinnacle Advisors for us, for example, is extremely important because that will be your evidence in the future.
Great, great, great. So now we are coming to our end the session. So let me give a vote of thanks here. So let me give a vote of thanks from here on behalf of all the participants. I would like to extend our sincere vote of thanks for this insightful session.
I'm so sorry to interrupt,
Yes,
Sailesh.
please. Yes,
I
yes.
guess I've literally just got to know that I've been part of a WhatsApp group and there are still a lot of questions coming my way, right?
Okay.
So my
Let me just
key,
check out this. Let me just check out this WhatsApp group. Just a
please,
second, please.
please.
Okay, great. So let me just choose one of the question. So one of the question is already been asked by you, that how would GST be charged on professional fees earned from Australia? So it was our first questions only. If a person has, yeah, great question. If a person has house in India but stays more than 7 months in Australia, where it will be a taxed when some services provided from both the places? I think you already answered, but still,
Uh,
if you can throw us a light.
Correct, correct. So to answer this question, again, very interesting. See, so again, here it is very important to again number one determine um, where the from which place or from which country are the invoices being raised. Very important. For us to understand this, assuming, okay, so let's take an example that if a person has a house in India, okay, so the person has a house in India, permanent establishment is in India, but stays more than 7 months in Australia, okay, which breaches that 183 days, where it will be taxed when some services provided from both places. Again, a very technical concept. There is a requirement to sit down with that person, number A, whoever is asked this, feel free to connect with me. We need to sit down, take a pen and paper, and understand, number A, that since last 4 years, as per the Indian law, were you a were you a resident or were you a non-resident in India? If your residency is ROR, which means you're subject to taxation in India, okay, and then it needs to sit down and understand which place would benefit more in terms of taking foreign tax credit. Because Australian financial year starts from 1st July and goes till 30th June. So, from the Australian tax perspective, we need to consider this period for determining the tax obligation. Whereas in India, it starts from 1st April to 31st March. So, there cannot be, unfortunately, a simple answer or a straight answer. You need to sit down on a pen and paper to understand during these two different financial years what was your tax jurisdiction, what was your tax position as per your residency status here. Sorry, what was your residency status for tax reasons in India and what is in Australia. After that, we'll dig deeper into it and understand all the law one by one to understand where it needs to be disclosed and then interpret DTA.
Understood, understood. So there are many questions are already here. So let me ask one more question about this. It's related to about geopolitical stress. So you may choose to answer or may not, but let me ask the questions. Would be
Sure.
keen to know about the legal and tax impacts of recent geopolitical.
Sorry, Sailesh, I just lost your voice. Sailesh, are you with me? Tech support, can you take it? Yes, Sailesh, are you here?
Yes, yes, I can hear you. Sorry from my side, it is network issues there.
No problem.
Okay, okay. So the question about was, would be keen to know about the legal and tax impacts of recent geopolitical stress and tariff protectionist policies on India, Australia offshoring with respect to, the consulting services we provide, like, accounting and assurance, sustainability reporting services, like we provide as ESG services. So what could be the impact of those, geopolitical stress?
Correct. Okay. So again, with due respect to people who are into the geopolitical space, I don't think, like Sailesh ji said, that I would say, skilled enough to comment on what is the right or wrong. But the fact that this question has been raised, I would just like to answer it with my understanding, or I would say my knowledge of what's happening. Which please do not consider it as an opinion or an advice or a consulting nature of answer, but just to understand what has happened in last 5 years in the geopolitical space, especially after COVID, because this session is for Australia and India. It is very important to understand how are things in these two countries from that perspective. After COVID, or before COVID, Australia had a very high dependency on China as a country, from my understanding, because I've lived there. I was in Australia when we had COVID, and the economy was heavily impacted because Chinese government was not, obviously, as we all know, there were a lot of issues in terms of, in terms of the COVID rules and the geopolitical tension, the countries run, fighting and all of that. So putting it short and getting it to a point, Australia started looking out for an alternative partner to reduce their heavy dependence from China. And China was not only into the goods space; they were also into the service space. So then into the southern hemisphere kind of geography, the geography that we are in, they think that Japan and India, other than China, can be two of the major economies which can assist them in sustaining their operations there in Australia in terms of reducing their heavy dependency from China and going to another country for collaboration. India, since last 5 years, India actually has built that capability, I would say, wherein we can cater to Australia as a market. So whether rightly mentioned, if I can see here also, I'm part of the WhatsApp group that accounting and assurance, consultancy, sustainability reporting and services. Yes, does the opportunity, is there an opportunity? Did the opportunity arise after COVID? Yes, there is an opportunity. Now the point is that how do I reach to that opportunity, right? So this is as simple as that. Let me give you an example that we have Prime Minister Modi in Mumbai, but is everyone able to meet Prime Minister Modi? Right. So my point
Right.
is that what is the strategy and how do you reach out to them? For that, you need to have something which is compelling to to the minister to meet you. So in the same way, Australians in general are looking out for usually people who has good experience into the Australian market. They're looking out for experienced professionals who are not only qualified, who have lived in Australia, because the Australian culture is very different to India. I believe one of a professional from the ICAI chapter in Australia did mention about a difference between the Australian culture compared to the Indian culture. So working with Aussies, very different to India. You need to get understanding of how they work, when they work. Secondly, need to understand, are we able to communicate as per their wavelengths, right? There are hundreds people out there providing offshoring market. Philippines is filled. Philippines is a strong competition. But if you're providing from India, what is your USP? Cost can't be any further the USP, for cost there are many countries doing that. What is the USP that can be provided other than the cost effectiveness? And again, there are a lot of questions in terms of understanding that if you're providing accounting and assurance services, what is your USP? Cost cannot be the USP. Are you aware with the Australian culture? Are you more aware about how they think, what they value, right? What is the data protection? If you're providing services from here, you need to understand what is something that would make them confident that they can successfully pass on the work to us. And I'm not talking only in offshoring and outsourcing space. We also cater to Australian small and medium businesses. It's an offshore boutique model. So we help with that as well. And even in that area, the way we deliver, which are the AI tools that we are using? Are they registered in India? Are they registered in Australia? Is the Australian company willing to understand what are the complexities of that tools or that AI apps that we are using? So again, a lot of questions. But yes, the opportunity arise. But we all as individuals, if anyone here is looking to, which I'm sure most of us are, to develop the capability that you can provide in the Australian space, there are a lot of factors. The culture is very different. If you can win the culture, you can win the people, you win the work.
Understood. Great, man. So there are other
Yeah.
question that has been asked by the audience, and one of the question that I have curated because I am very keen to know about Australia, because you have been traveling nearly 2 to 3 times every year, and you have been there. So I want to ask a question about the how our chartered accountant community from ICI India is doing there. So if you have any knowledge about it, please let us know.
Absolutely. So it's amazing to know that ICAI has its chapter in Australia. Because of the fact that I've lived and worked in Sydney, I happened to meet the strategic team there in Sydney when I was there in March this year. Pinnacle Advisors was exhibiting at one of the events, which was accounting at the business show. in Sydney, and ICAI happened to be there as well, and it was amazing to see India's growing accounting space to have its footprints in Australia. From the strategic perspective, they are doing a lot of things for a lot of Indian chartered accountants who are qualified from ICAI and who have migrated permanently to Australia. They have actually found a very healthy community there. ICAI is hosting many seminars, many webinars there, many in person meet. They celebrate festivals there. Recently, one of my very good connect was celebrating Diwali with the ICAI Sydney chapter. So ICAI Sydney chapter has truly been a great initiative by ICAI in Australia. Still lots to come. They anticipate having more and more people be part of that community. I do suggest many people hearing me right now, go on LinkedIn, go on Australia, ICAI Sydney chapter, go and check out their post, see what they have been doing. And you would be so thrilled to know that how much of support would an Indian CA have in Australia. Also, there are MOUs in place which can be be benefiting for us, especially for Indian CAs with CPA Australia. I am myself from Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand, and it can be leveraged for people who are going to Australia. But again, my only question would be to understand the strategic move and understand what is your USP. How can you create that change? Whether you want to start your firm, whether you want to continue providing as a freelancer, whether you want to find an employment in in an Australian company, or whether you want to work as a consultant, a dedicated consultant for an Australian company, understanding your USP is very important because there are already a lot of people in this space. Already a lot of people, I can say from my experience and network.
Understood. See, one of the question that I am already seeing in chat box is that it's a really important question for us. Whenever we have these outsourcing sessions, it's always these questions always comes. Always means always. The question is about how do we source clients from Australia? You already mentioned about this. We should have a USP and we should do these kinds of things that you mentioned. But so we really want to know that what are the actionable steps that we can do actually. And if you can curate it from your side, so you just started from 2 years from outsourcing firm. You started from 2 years only. So what you have done and what we can do, please.
Good. Absolutely great question. What you can do. Okay. So something that I always follow, again, something that might be helpful to people attending the session would be to understand what is your individual specialty. Okay. So the normal logic behind this is that I will not follow what everyone is following. Right. If everyone is going and providing outsourcing services, say at $10 per hour, is that your skill set? Number A. What is your specialty? Understanding what is your specialty is important. Like for me, our USP is very different. Is that because I've lived and worked in Australia, we provide services to Australian clientele because I've lived and worked there, and that is a USP that I understand the market well, I understand the people well, I have the qualifications, have the experience. Again, I have a very strong professional network in Australia. I have worked very closely with the Australian government, New South Wales government. I was the brand ambassador for them, so I have a very strong ties. I have been able to follow what my base is. I'm able to follow what our specialty is, and we have grown into it. I strongly suggest all of you to do that in in-depth analysis and understanding. Number A, what is your specialty into the accounting space? Okay, there are so many different branches that you can do. Management consultancy is there, auditing is there, accounting is there. Everyone is just focusing on one area, which is bookkeeping. They're just focusing on accounting. There are so many different areas. I did speak to you, Sailesh, long time ago, and you said that how you're into the ESG space, which is exciting for me because not many people are talking about ESG. So you have found your own niche. So finding your own niche is very important. And then understanding that based on that need, do the market research. And please don't only believe on ChatGPT. Please don't only believe on Microsoft Copilot. Please don't only believe on what people have to say. I would suggest strongly understand from professional networks, be in touch with ICAI, be part of the face-to-face sessions that are happening. Come for WOFA, talk to people, and don't talk to them with the perspective that I want work or I want to collaborate. Talk to them, what is the problem? Okay, a lot of people are into this space. Still, why aren't more Australians or Aussies in general open to getting work done from India? What are the pain points? Right? I got a very good experience that, we worry about data protection because if someone will offer us for cost effectiveness, we are concerned whether a data is passed to someone else. So how do you answer this question? So again, my understanding is find your niche, do the market research, okay, be part of more and more of such sessions like WOFA, come for Global Udan series, even though if it is not your geography. I saw UK chapter session recently on Global Udan, and I understood how the UK market works. So then I can think, okay, how different is UK from Australia? So again, being open, being curious, coming to networking events, finding your niche can be helpful.
Understood. The way that you have answered is really great, and from my point of view, you answered, and you have pointed out the actionable steps too. But for example, if I'm an accountant here in India, or I'm a tax expert. So what are the things that I should do? Do I have to learn, technical? Do I have to learn any kind of technical knowledge? We generally use Tally or SAP or any other softwares which are really good, like a Zoho too. So what are the accounting softwares are there in Australia's, and the technicality that we have to learn? What are the steps that we should follow?
Correct, correct. So I can answer this based on the work that we provide. And the work that we provide broadly falls into three categories. One is business to business, where we do typical offshoring and outsourcing work, right? But we have a very different way of working wherein we have a very flexible model where we directly work as part of their team, and we have internal processes and procedures which we follow for technical training alternate Saturdays. Alternate Saturdays is a working and we follow technical training. Second is B2C. We do a lot of help with structuring. We a lot of help in interpreting DTAA and consulting. So these are our area of services. Now, what is related to that in terms of something which can be taken up as a certification process? Accounting software that is being used by Australia, which is Xero, right? Xero accounting software is 90% used by Australian businesses. MYOB is an accounting software used by them. I have, before this session, taken up one session where I shared the practical applications of Xero one by one with an example on Xero, a dedicated series. I can definitely talk this to ICAI and we can think of having something like that, or we can have someone who can be more dedicatedly doing it. But yes, I would suggest go on Google. Go on CP Australia website, go on ICAI website. I don't know whether that is something that would be available directly, but there are a lot of Xero accounting courses that can be done. Follow the Australian Taxation Office portal. You can understand what are some of the sessions that they do. Be on top of the Australian accounting news that is there in the industry happening. Network and talk to more and more people. I think so. See, again, everything Google can help you. Networking is something that you have to work on. So doing the Xero accounting, working very well on communication, and communication doesn't has to be only verbal. Non-verbal communication. How do you draft the emails? If you get on a call with an Aussie, for the first 5 minutes, they will just talk about sports. Whereas in India, we'll directly get to work. So we now directly get to work. But that's not in Australia. If for the first 5 minutes, you'll just talk about, hey mate, how was your weekend? Yeah, I did this, I did that, and that's when they start the work. So we have to, so it's overall a very different process through which you build those connections also.
Understood. Great. So you were talking about communication skills. So how important communication, because you are this question is related to you only because you have mentioned earlier that you're part of a woman empowerment, development of a woman empowerment, and you also got the good business prestigious awards. So tell us about what is the importance of a communication skills including English and other skills that we require to have these kinds of services, outsourcing services. And you already talked about technical knowledge. Now about communication skill, please.
Correct, correct. So, thank you, Sailesh, for actually bringing this. This is completely off the topic that we spoke about
Yes,
right
yes.
now. So I think from my experience, which is also something that I try inculcating in my mentees, I work with one foundation, which is Lighthouse Project, and we talk about a few of the things which people, especially when they are in college or when they are in university studying, they should know. This is how do you lead a conversation. So when I say how do you lead a conversation, is that if you see that how people talk in Maharashtra would be very different the way they talk in Gujarat.
Right.
What we talk and how we talk is also very different based on different geographies. In Australia, I can definitely say that if I'm walking on the road and I would say, "Hey, hi, how are you doing?" They would respond. They would respond with a smile. If I'm getting into the bus and I would talk to the bus conductor that, "Hey mate, how your day is going?" He's like, "Hey, it's going pretty good. How about you?" So they're friendly, building on their communication skill, be open. Don't think what the other person will think. We often do feel judged. Don't feel judged, right? If even if you are on an online community, whether you're studying for CPA, CANZ, you're part of ICA community, go and talk to them. Go and talk to them. If I'm talking to someone, how we met, Sailesh, you remember we met at WOFA. We just came and we
Yeah.
spoke. And then after that, we
Right.
initially spoke in English. And after that, our conversation started in Gujarati because we connected.
Right.
So and we never knew that this connection would lead us to having these sessions. So I think it's all about understanding how do you lead a conversation. And then the skill will come that if you lead more and more and more and more of conversation, you will understand how to tweak it.
Right.
It is
Right.
as simple as that you learn to ride a bicycle with practice, 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 practice. You can play around the bicycle. I think that's the only difference here is to do it consistently. Talk, 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 talk to people on WOFA, meet them, introduce them, and don't talk what you can provide. Ask them what is their problem. Get curiosity. Curiosity will build. If I'll ask you, Shalishi, tell me what do you do? If you tell me what do you do, and then after 30 seconds, you would be curious more to know what I do.
Right.
Right. So I will bring complete focus of my conversation should go on what are you doing? Tell me about yourself.
Right. Right. Understood. Yes. So I think we are going to let me just check out the any other question that if you have. It's related to technical questions. So if I have a physical asset in Australia, tax applicable in my view on income rental?
Okay, if you have a physical asset in Australia, tax applicable in view on income rental, yes, correct. So if you're a resident and an ordinary resident in India, you're a non-resident in Australia, but you have a property, a physical asset in Australia from which you're getting rental income, then you're subject to taxation in Australia because that's the Australian sourced income. But how will you show the tax that you pay then? So the non-resident tax rate is extremely high. It's 32.5% for individuals in Australia. So if you pay that tax there, then we need to sit down and understand how the foreign tax credit will be claimed in the Indian tax return. Because in Australia, you're not taxed on worldwide income because you're a non-resident. You're only taxed on the Australian sourced income. So you can claim that tax paid in Australia as a foreign tax credit in the Indian income tax return.
Understood, understood. So I was just searching about, the Abhay sir has provided the one link that apo.ici.org, but I was just registered myself as a firm. If I'm providing any kind of outsourcing services to any countries, so I can register my firm in that portal, and someone who needs any kind of services can come as an aggregator, as a come and find out the services that we provide. So I just wanted to let you know that I already registered myself just right now, and I'm really thankful to Abhay sir and the WTO team for these kinds of services that we are providing for our members, and it's really help. Sometimes we just need what you can do us for our members, and they are doing really great. So if WTO, I already asked all the questions that has been provided by the participants. So now I would request to Gunjan ma'am and uh, take a permission to end the sessions if allow, and take a vote of thanks. Ma'am? Okay. So she has already responded in WhatsApp. So let me just give a vote of thanks and then end the sessions. So Vidhi ma'am, it was really a pleasure hearing you and clearing all the doubt, not just technical, but about verbal skills and non-verbal skills and everything. And it was really wonderful sessions, and you have answered all the question that has been asked by the participants also. And I'm really thankful to CA Abhay Chajar sir and CA Sanjeev Kumar Agalwal sir for doing these kinds of providing these kinds of opportunity to us. Really grateful to you, WDO team. Really grateful. Thank you, and we end our sessions here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone here for your time today. I hope the session was helpful. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you very much, Abhay Chachit sir. Thank you so much, ICAI. Thank you. CA Shailesh Badavania for all the time that you've put in. And I hope I have answered the question and done justice to your time. For any further questions, please feel free to connect with me, and I would be more than happy to have a detailed conversation for any of the queries.
Please, ma'am, you can end the session.